Pence seemed to put out a slightly more moderate speech there, as Selena was explaining. He talked about the fact that he wasn't looking for decoupling. He isn't, of course, as he criticised China over issues like Hong Kong. Do you take solace from this speech? What does it tell you?
Well, there's actually a very important difference in the vice president's speech this time versus the last time. Last time, among the criteria that he listed for an improvement in relations was mutual respect for sovereignty, which the Chinese could take as, we're not going to do anything about Hong Kong, that is the United States. This time he changed it to international respect for the international commercial rules. In other words, if China acts more responsibly economically with respect in trade and investment, then we can improve relations. Other things, security, human rights, those aren't going away, but we can establish a floor. And that's a major change in terms of his remarks compared to last year.
Human rights aren't going away, as you say.
Yes.
So what is then the onus on companies like the NBA, like Nike and others who are operating here? Do they take the Bob Iger approach, the CEO of Disney, and try and avoid getting pulled into these political conflicts? Or, as Adam Silver of the NBA has done, and Mike Pence didn't reference this, stand up for free speech and those liberties?
Well, I think Adam Silver was put in a position, whether rightly or wrongly, where he had to because the ball had already moved down court in terms of adverse statements made both by other NBA players and, of course, by the president of the Rockets. So he was, in a sense, forced to step back a bit because of the adverse reaction in the States to those comments. But leaving that aside, companies have to move very, very carefully. They already have, but now we're also seeing if a company is selling an international product and it adheres too closely to China's position, for example, with respect to the map on the South China Sea, then it may jeopardize its markets in other countries like Vietnam or Malaysia. So it's become very, very complicated, and companies really need to consult with experts before they do things in terms of a message and in terms of understanding what their obligations are with respect to their employees. And that has to be company-wide.
It must be keeping you very busy. So you touched on Hong Kong, the South China Sea issues. We've also got the matter of Xinjiang, where according to the United Nations, there are at least 1 million men, women and children held in what people have described as concentration camps. For how long can foreign businesses justify operating in a country where that is happening?
Well, there are two dimensions. One is operating in the country, and one is operating in that particular region. I think in terms of operating in that particular region, the answer is companies are withdrawing, and companies are not able to do so in order to maintain their reputation as responsible stakeholders.
Has that accelerated this year?
It has accelerated, yes, indeed. It has accelerated. It has accelerated with respect to cotton purchases. It has accelerated with respect to sales to Ministry of Public Security related businesses, and that has accelerated. In terms of the country as a whole, so far at least, that hasn't been a requirement. It hasn't been perceived as an obligation.
Right. Lester, just to take it back to just a broader framework here of trying to level the playing field, something which you mentioned is just one of many, many major aspects of this very complex relationship. This new foreign investment law that was put in place, I think it was early this year, you've taken a look at that, I'm sure, of course. I'm not mistaken, that goes into effect the start of next year. Does that solve the problem?
It doesn't solve the problem, but it constitutes substantial progress. Draft regulations to implement that law were released for comment on a semi-closed basis a week or so ago. The period for submitting comments ends next week. And just as importantly, China also issued new rules with respect to optimization of the business environment. And these call for leveling the playing field, treating all companies in China equally. In terms of foreign investment, the draft would allow foreign investment companies to participate on an equal basis with respect to government procurement, with respect to administrative licensing, with respect to standards formulation. If these are honored, and this is a very important question, if these commitments are honored, and a lot depends upon companies willing to step up the plate and take advantage of the avenues that are available for administrative redress through litigation. If they're mistreated, then this will go a long way towards addressing the problems. But there's still a number of issues. State-owned enterprises, despite the rhetoric, everybody's going to be equal, level playing field. Everybody in China who runs a private company, that is domestic Chinese citizens, they recognize that state-owned companies have a big advantage. So why should foreign invested companies feel that they're going to be treated any better? In addition to that, the company law, which will now govern foreign invested enterprises quite clearly, also specifies the role of the party committee. What's the role of the party committee going to be?